Hi and welcome back. This is the third part of your mini lecture series for week 2, and we're going to discuss informative speech. Let's start with the beginning, the main goal of informative speech. So most of the time when we choose a topic for our speech, we tend to choose a topic that we are familiar with, that we have experience in. And so we find that to be an interesting topic to discuss with our audience. However, sometimes we forget to actually check in with our audience. What is it that they already know about the topic that we're going to discuss? So by knowing this, you can avoid just giving information that they already know and lose their interest. And that's why I think it's very important that you check with your audience as best as you can, yeah, through all of the information that, for instance, questions that you ask, information that you get from our discussions board from last week, to check in with them. What is their knowledge about the topic that you're interested in? And therefore, by knowing that there is a gap between what they know and what you know, you can address that gap and provide new piece of information so that your speech will become engaging not only for yourself but also for them, because they're the one who's going to listen and watch you deliver your speech. And then there are things to remember that when we're thinking about informative speech, and I have talked about this before, is that the important thing, informative speech is to inform. You're not trying to persuade, you're not trying to do anything to sway their opinions about certain things. So you are taking a role of a teacher or of a reporter that is just only teaching or only reporting certain piece of information. Yeah. And it is your goal to be objective and unbiased in delivering that information, and that you avoid persuading your audience. And when we're thinking about types of informative speeches, we have 6 types of informative speeches. And this is basically the categories of topic that falls under informative speech. The first one is we're talking about object. I'm pretty sure that you quite knowledgeable what objects means. And in this case, for instance, I'm just going to give you some previous topics that my students in the previous semesters have tackled. One of them have actually talked about helicopter and how helicopter works. And the reason why he was fascinated with that and he wanted to share with the audience was because he was a pilot in training. And another student who's fascinated by 3D printer actually tackled that idea. Why 3D printer is so fascinating and why we need to understand the technology. And then some people are interested in talking about people. These are figures that are important in their life, that are very significant. And you can, basically choose anyone that has significant contribution to the humankind. And that can start from, Martin Luther King Jr. all the way to Steve Jobs, all the way to one of my favorite writers, J.K. Rowling, for instance. And you can also talk about events, yeah? And you can choose, for instance, those of you who are a history buff, you may want to talk about World War One or World War Two, or you can talk about 9/11, for instance. And you can also talk about processes, which usually include step by step on how to do something. I had a student who talked about how to sit properly when you're in front of a computer to avoid having neck pain and having back pain. Another student talked about the importance of proper breathing to actually help to center yourself as well as to make yourself calmer. And there's also this idea of concepts, yeah, such as Big Bang Theory. I'm not talking about the sitcoms. Or, for instance, concept about racism, concept about gender, for instance. And we can talk about issues as well. what I want you to understand is that sometimes when we're talking about issues, it is related to concept and it is related to events as well. So when we're talking about the stay-at-home order, for instance, it's an issue, and it started with this idea of the concept of COVID-19, for instance, and how that affects the whole livelihood of this nation. And when did that happen? When did it start? Where did it start? So you see here that this idea of events, concept, and issues can be related to one another, and you don't have to choose just one. You can actually choose two and relate them with one another. You can talk about objects and then the history of objects. Yeah, for instance, you can talk about telephone, or you can talk about electricity, and you are going to relate that with this idea of the history behind it. And by all means, that means you combine objects and events, and that's fine. Yeah. And then when you have chosen a topic and you want to think about your informative strategies in introducing and explaining the topic to your audience, then you can choose one of these five, or you combine two or three in your speech. One is descriptions, which provides audiences a mental sense of an event, a process, or an object, and evokes sights, sounds, and smells. The next one is definition, which is used to explain or describe the meaning of a term or concept. Some students like to start with that, and that's fine. And then from definitions, you provide explanations, which provides more in-depth information on why something is the way it is. And then some people who choose a process step by step can try to demonstrate. For instance, when it comes to how to sit properly, where should you put your laptop or your computer? How do you, breathe properly when it comes to helping you to feel less stressed, more centered, and calmer. And last but not least, there's also the techniques of narration or storytelling. I have to say that some of the most powerful speeches that I have watched actually started with narration, because it's one way for the speakers to hook their audience to listen to the story and brings them to this idea of the concept that they would like to explain further. Yeah. So all combinations of this description, definition, explanation, demonstration, and narrations are techniques or informative strategies that you can use to develop your informative speech. Now, the last slide for this mini lecture is actually talking about tips for delivering informative speech. We started by talking about how to develop topic and how to organize it and make an outline. And we talk about the importance of number 3, right? So I want you to understand that next week, when you develop your topic and outline for your informative speech, that you only have 5 to 7 minutes to deliver your informative speech. Therefore, you need to be very focused and make it simple so that you can cover the material that you would like to cover within that 5 to 7 minutes. When you make it too general, it's going to be much more challenging for you. So keep it focused and keep it simple is my suggestion for you. And then don't forget to provide a new piece of information, as well as make your topic personally relevant so that it helps build your credibility. Talking about credibility, I just want you to understand that when we are sitting in the audience, we are curious about our speaker. We want to make sure that the speaker is knowledgeable to provide the information that she or he provides. So when you're speaking about something that you're familiar with and you have good knowledge about it, then it helps build your credibility. That's why I say that make it personally relevant is important, as well as make it relevant for your audience as well. Because a key to a good public speaker is that we're not only thinking about ourselves, but we're actually thinking about our audience. All right, that's it for the last part of the mini lecture for this week. Now I would like to discuss about the lecture check questions. So for this activity, I want you to search YouTube TED Talk or a similar video website for an informative speech on a topic that is interesting to you. Now, I want you to upload the link to the discussion board and provide a brief explanation how the topic is relevant to you. Then answer the following questions. Which informative strategies does the speaker predominantly use to present information in his or her speech? Is it description, definition, explanation, demonstration, or narrative? So do you think the strategy is effective? Why or why not? Please explain. Let me tell you something. I also would like you to actually share not only why that speech is relevant to you, but why is that speech going to be relevant for your audience as well? I know this is a bonus question, but I think it's very important, like what I said, to not think only about ourselves, but to also think about our audience. All right, that's it. Well done for watching the 3 parts mini lecture series. And I'm wishing you good luck for this week 2. Thank you.